My chest tightened, and my phone nearly slipped from my trembling fingers. 40 years, 40 full years of a life poured into someone else. What had I left behind? I gave up my dreams, my desires, even my silences, to build a home. From a tiny apartment, barely big enough to hold our promises, to a warm house with oak trees in the backyard, brick by brick, choice by choice, we built it, always believing that love was worth the effort. For 4 decades, I was William Carter's wife, always. There, always present, even when I felt invisible. I was Michael's mother, raising him with prayers and patience, and Noah's grandmother, my ray of sunshine on the cloudiest days. But that night, everything shattered with the hollow sound of a truth I never saw coming. My entire identity crumbled like a house with no foundation. I am Beth Carter, and this is the story of how I uncovered a betrayal, faced the shame, and eventually began an unexpected journey, not just of pain, but of rediscovery. The bomb dropped. With a click, a video on Facebook. It was an ordinary night. I was setting the table for dinner in our home in Ardsley Park, Savannah. The sweet scent of freshly baked sweet potato pie filled the kitchen, William's favorite, or so he said. The light reflected softly off the walls as I folded the napkins like I had for years, slowly, routinely, with no idea what was about to unravel. My phone buzzed. I picked it up without thinking, expecting a message from Emily or a silly notification. But it wasn't. It was a video shared by a woman from church. I clicked. And there he was. William, my William. Impeccable in his navy blue suit, the same one he wore on our anniversaries. Beside him, Victoria Lawson, the so-called old friend he claimed to keep in touch with for nostalgia's sake. Just a familiar face from the past. Nothing more. But the video told a different story. This wasn't a casual event. It was a ceremony. An intimate, elegant evening, with candles, soft music, polite applause. The two of them, exchanging sweet words at the microphone, raising glasses, smiling like they shared something sacred. The caption read, "A night of love and hope, together until the end." And Victoria, despite supposedly battling acute myeloid leukemia, smiled like a woman who had everything, including my husband. And me? I didn't exist in that world, as if I had never existed in his, as if 4 decades of loyalty, sacrifices, and sleepless nights spent nurturing our home, our child, and even his health were nothing but forgotten footnotes in a new story told by someone else. I sat frozen. My phone suddenly felt as heavy as the years I had poured into our life. One house. Felt colder, emptier. I sat down at the table but couldn't touch the food. I thought of all the times I asked for more attention, more presence, and was met with silence. Of the parties I spent alone waiting for him to show up. Of all the times I stayed quiet just to keep the peace. 40 years of marriage. From the days we scraped together rent money to the moment we signed the deed to our dream home. And now? Was any of it real? I raised Michael with every ounce of love I had. I gave everything for him. And I cared for Noah like he was my second son. At 65, I believed I had a solid family, that we were aging together, imperfect but committed. But that video, that public display of betrayal, revealed a brutal truth. I was disposable, replaceable. William chose another woman, and what hurt even more, Michael, my son, was there, celebrating, clapping, laughing, as if it were a joyful beginning, not the end of the life I knew. If you, like Beth, have ever felt abandoned after a lifetime of giving, please, know this: you are not alone. This story is for you. Leave a word of encouragement for someone who might be going through this right now, or, if you feel ready, share your own story in the comments. And subscribe for more true stories of courage and rebuilding that speak directly to your heart, Together, we are stronger. Rage boiled inside me. My heart pounded so loud it felt like it was screaming for me. I rushed to the study, where William's tablet was still charging. Something told me there was more, and there was. I found messages, screenshots, conversations I should never have seen, but could no longer ignore. Tender words, intimate jokes, confessions, promises, pet names. An entire world built behind my back. With frozen fingers and a burning face, I took screenshots, dozens of them. I stood up, my hands steady, but my legs trembling. I walked to the living room and waited, dinner untouched, lights off, me sitting in the dark. I heard the car pull in, doors opening, laughter. William still wore the same suit from the video. He carried a faint scent of perfume, a soft floral that wasn't mine. Michael came in laughing, with Emily and Noah, as if it were just another night, as if I weren't sitting there, shattered. I sat up straight, saying nothing, the room dim, the silence sharp. When Michael turned on the light, his voice cracked with surprise. "Mom? What are you doing here?" I let out a dry laugh. The question was absurd. I had lived in that house for almost 40 years, and now my own son was questioning my presence? I didn't say a word. I stared at them, my voice cold but firm. "What did you two do tonight?" William, taking off his jacket, came in with a light tone. "What's the problem, Beth? You're acting strange." My patience snapped. "I want to know what you did. Where were you?" My voice rose, sharp and cutting, something that didn't happen often. They looked at me, stunned, as if I were the intruder. "Mom, what's the drama now?" "You're being ridiculous," Michael said, lying without hesitation. "We didn't do anything special, just ran a few errands." I looked at William, silent, accepting the lie. Pathetic. If I didn't have proof, how long would they have kept up the charade? I showed them the screenshots on my phone, William and Victoria planning their night, exchanging words of love. "You were snooping, Beth," was the first thing William said. No regret, no shame, just anger for being caught. He snatched the phone from my hand and deleted everything. "I can't believe you went through my things, Beth. I thought you were better than that. At our age, why are you acting like a child, throwing around baseless accusations? Vicky has leukemia. She doesn't have much time left. All she wanted was an unforgettable night with me. How could I deny that to a dying friend?" "We didn't tell you because we didn't want to stress you out over something so minor. And yet here you are, making a scene." I just looked at him. It was absurd. He was speaking as if planning a romantic night with another woman, something we hadn't shared in 40 years, was no different than helping a neighbor. "Stop it, Mom," Michael interrupted, his voice full of disdain. "At your age, you should be over this kind of thing. Are you seriously jealous of a dying woman? That's just low." I hadn't said a word about jealousy, but Michael had already chosen his side. Emily touched his arm, uneasy, but then Noah, my 1-year-old grandson, started crying, scared by the tension in the room. Michael, who spoiled Noah endlessly, fell silent. But before leaving with his family, he gave me a look that said I was the problem. I was left alone with William. He sighed, adjusting his shirt. "See what you caused, Beth? You just had to throw it in everyone's face. Now everything's a mess." That was enough. Calmly, I picked up the divorce papers I had already prepared and placed them on the coffee table. "William, I want a divorce." The look of shock on his face almost made me laugh. He thought I'd swallow his excuses and forgive the man who made promises to another woman in front of the whole town. "Beth, come on, stop with the theatrics," he said. "We're 65 years old. We're not kids anymore. Can't we just move on?" He was right about one thing. We weren't young. But that was exactly why I couldn't waste any more time. "Exactly," I said, my voice firm. "We're not young. That's why I'm leaving. I won't spend the rest of my life feeling ignored, unloved, discarded. I refuse to let my final years be filled with regret. It's over. I've packed my things. Whatever's left is yours. I won't be here tomorrow." William stared at me, his eyes a mess of emotions. He glanced at the papers, hesitating. "This is how we're ending it?" Didn't respond. I headed toward the guest room, but he shouted after me, "Fine, I'll sign." I was wrong. I shouldn't have hidden it. If you ever need anything, you know where I am. Maybe we can still be friends. I shook my head, without turning back. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, I dragged my suitcase to the front door. Michael was there. He saw me, saw the luggage. But instead of helping his 65-year-old mother, he simply said, "Mom, this is crazy. You and Dad are forever. How can you throw everything away? Who's going to cook, clean, take care of Noah? You're making a big deal out of nothing. Dad just helped Vicky. That's all it was. Why are you being so stubborn?" As Michael spilled his accusations, I saw him for who he truly was, a selfish, ungrateful son. I had raised him for over 30 years, only to realize I gave my life to someone who didn't value me. I nearly died giving birth to him, an embolism that almost took me. It was a miracle we survived. As a child, he was my pride, sweet, loving, always promising to protect me when he grew up. But now, this man disrespected me, hurt me more than anyone ever could. I couldn't even look at him. Every word from his mouth deepened the pain. Without saying a word, I pushed the suitcase to the door, changed my shoes, and left. I learned in the cruelest way that everything passes. I left that house with just one suitcase. The rest didn't matter. Michael, angry at my silence, threw a mug into the trash. The sound of breaking glass echoed, sharp and final, just like the bond between mother and son, shattered for good. I gave him one last look at the door, but any remaining attachment was gone. "Michael Carter, I am not your maid. I am your mother. Who gave you the right to believe I'm supposed to cook, clean, and serve you? Maybe I spoiled you too much. Maybe that's why you turned out like this. You disappointed me, Michael. I hope that when I'm gone, you reflect on everything I did for this family." That was it. I didn't care if he wanted to argue. I turned around and walked away. From outside, I could hear him throwing things, but that was no longer my concern. The moment I stepped through that door, I stopped living for them. I left William Carter's house and headed to my apartment in Savannah's historic district. In that silence, I realized that very little of the time I was married ever truly belonged to me. Most of it had been spent in the background, holding everything together while the spotlight was always on someone else. A few days later, I decided to grab a coffee at Riverfront Cafe, a sophisticated place Savannah loves meeting her friends at. I thought I'd try something different, maybe shake off the weight I'd been carrying. But as soon as I walked in, a woman I had never seen up close gave me a sarcastic smile, like we were old frenemies. "You must be Beth, right? You actually look pretty good for your age." Not as worn out as William said you were, it was Victoria. Impeccable in a designer dress, her hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. She looked like she had just stepped out of a fashion magazine, oozing confidence and calculation. Everything about her screamed curated perfection, as if she had dressed up for a movie role, one where she was the beloved heroine, tragically misunderstood. Her words, though framed as a compliment, were laced with venom, and I, sleep-deprived, aching from the move, emotionally drained, had no energy for pretense. She didn't look like someone with leukemia, not from the outside. She was glowing, full of life. I didn't respond to the compliment. I just stared at her. She gave a forced laugh and shifted into a syrupy tone. "Hi, I'm Vicky, longtime friend of William's. He talks about you all the time, but we've never had the pleasure of meeting. I heard you're going through a tough time." I sat down across from her, expressionless, nodding slightly. I didn't feel like talking, didn't feel like entertaining whatever performance she had planned. But Victoria, oblivious to my silence, or perhaps enjoying it, kept going, as if I were leaning in, hanging on her every word. You must be exhausted, huh? At our age, everything feels heavier. Life's just full of ups and downs. William and I, for example, we broke things off because of the distance. We always had something strong between us, but we let it go. It just wasn't the right time back then. She paused, smiling wider, her eyes gleaming with pride like she had just confessed to surviving a great, noble tragedy. I couldn't help it. I laughed. So, to heal this great lost love, I'm supposed to throw away 40 years of my life so you two can finally be together? My voice was pure sarcasm. Beth, I know we weren't fair to you, she said, dismissing my words like they hadn't even registered. But who can control the heart? A few months ago, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. My whole world turned upside down. I was desperate, alone. So I reached out to William. Honestly, I didn't think he'd even want to see me, but he came running. A sentimental smile crossed her face, like she expected me to be moved by the loyalty. In their melodrama, I wasn't. Still, she continued, seemingly unaware of how ridiculous she sounded. You have no idea how deeply he was affected by my diagnosis. He held me and cried like a child. It touched me so much. After all these years, he still loved me. She leaned in, voice lighter, animated, like she was recounting a fairy tale. So when I asked him for one special night, he got so excited, said he'd make me the happiest woman alive. He planned every little detail. I raised an eyebrow. So that's what all those late nights at work had been. Not deadlines, not emergencies. It was her, their big celebration. It had been right in front of me the whole time. I'd been too wrapped up in routine to see it. My patience snapped. I'm Tew. Not interested in your love story. Whatever's going on between you now is none of my business. I stood up, motioned for the waiter, paid my bill, and grabbed my coffee to go. I wanted nothing more than to leave. So eager to go? I still have so much to tell you, Victoria said. Her tone suddenly hurt, like I was the one being cruel. If you don't want to hear it, fine. I've already said too much. I didn't mean to upset you. Her theatrics were exhausting, but since she insisted, I wasn't going to let her leave feeling like the saint. I stopped, turned, and met her gaze with steady calm. Really? No shame at all? You knew William was married. You went after him anyway, and then threw a party like it was a victory lap. You're the mistress. Let's not sugarcoat this with talk of destiny and love. If you loved him so much, why wait 40 years? What were the two of you doing all this time? My voice was even, controlled, but every word cut like glass. The entire cafe went silent. People turned to watch. Victoria froze, her mouth slightly open, eyes welling up as she slipped back into her favorite role. The victim. Beth, how dare you say that, she whispered. Then William burst through the door, disheveled and frantic. He spotted Victoria, crying, and rushed over like he was in some kind of rescue scene. I know you're upset, he said to me, defensive right away, but this isn't Vicky's fault. If you're angry, take it out on me, not her. I nearly laughed at the audacity. They were the ones who cheated, who lied, but somehow I was the villain. Someone in the cafe spoke loudly. Weren't those two in a video on Facebook? That romantic party? The room fell quiet. Then came the whispers. The murmurs spread like wildfire. Faces turned toward me. Suddenly, I wasn't William's wife, the woman who had built a life with him for 4 decades. I was the bitter ex trying to sabotage true love. The comments hit like blows. How shameful, at her age, trying to steal someone's man. Exactly. Vicky and William are the real couple. They've loved each other for years. This woman won't let go. No wonder he left her. Look how aggressive she is. The words were merciless. To these strangers, I was the homewrecker. William stood there, caught in the tension, maybe about to speak. His eyes met mine, guilt flickering in them. But Victoria wasn't going to let that moment slip away. She was winning, and she wanted me to feel every second of it. At the perfect moment, she placed a hand on her chest, face twisting in pain, and collapsed weakly into William's arms. "William, I don't feel well. What if the leukemia's getting worse?" And just like that, Victoria fainted, on cue. William panicked. Any guilt he had, any flicker of hesitation, disappeared. "Vicky, stay with me." He didn't even glance at me. Didn't care that minutes earlier I had been publicly humiliated, accused of things I didn't do. No, his world was only her now. He lifted her into his arms and ran toward the door, shouting for someone to call an ambulance. The same people who had judged me seconds ago sprang into action. Phones out, offers of help, concerned whispers. And me? I was nobody. No one wanted my side. No one wanted the truth. I just stood there, watching the scene unfold, then turned and walked out. That place wasn't worth one more second of my presence. Back at my apartment, I barely took off my coat before collapsing on the couch. And for the first time in years, I truly cried. The kind of crying that shakes your chest, leaves you breathless. I cried for the years I threw away, for the shame I had endured, for the injustice of it all. William was a selfish, heartless man. He discarded me like I was nothing, wiped away our 40 years of marriage, and didn't even bother to acknowledge my pain. He didn't care that I was being humiliated, that strangers were tearing me apart with their words like I was some villain in a soap opera. Why was he playing the victim? Why was I, his wife of 4 decades, the one branded as the intruder? And the worst part, why didn't I have anything to prove I had ever been part of his life? The truth hit me like a punch to the stomach. In 40 years, we never had a real ceremony. At first we were broke, barely scraping by, snapping a few blurry photos when we could. Then, over the years, during all the moves, the little we did was lost. Old albums misplaced, framed pictures shattered or forgotten in some attic box. Now, the only undeniable proof of our life together was our son, Michael Carter. That same ungrateful man who had already turned his back on me. I knew Michael had heard about the disaster at the cafe. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with his messages. Not one of them asked if I was okay or needed anything. Not a single word of concern. No. Michael was furious. He accused me of being cruel, called me a heartless, bitter old woman. Said I made a scene, pressured Victoria, and caused her to faint. Why would you do that, Mom? Why make things worse? Vicky was trying to be nice, and you had to create drama. You almost killed her. Do you even care? That's my son. The baby I nearly lost during labor. The child I raised with nothing but love, protecting him, sacrificing so much. And now he treated me like a monster. At that moment, I faced the truth I had been avoiding for too long. I had made some terrible choices. Married the wrong man. Raised the wrong son. Spent my years pouring love into people who never truly loved me back. In this digital world, gossip spreads like wildfire. The scene at the cafe, Victoria's fake faint, William rushing to her side like some knight in shining armor. It was all caught on camera by nosy bystanders. Within hours, the footage was everywhere. But of course, none of it showed what I had said to Victoria. The clip that went viral only featured William yelling at me, demanding to know why I was torturing his precious Vicky. Whoever posted it made him look like the noble protector, shielding the love of his life from a jealous, vindictive ex-wife. Can you imagine? 40 years of marriage erased, and now I was cast as the mistress. The comments were vicious. Thousands of strangers took turns shredding me apart. I was called disgusting, pathetic, shameless. An old hag trying to ruin a love story. She had her chance, and William moved on. Why won't she? Vicky is elegant and sweet, and this bitter ex-wife just keeps stalking her. I tried, just once, to post the truth. My truth. But my words were instantly buried under a fresh wave of insults, drowned out before anyone could hear me. If it had ended there, the internet would have moved on in a few days, found some new scandal to obsess over. But Michael, my own son, the child I devoted my life to, sealed my fate. Right in the middle of the chaos, while my name was still trending. For all the wrong reasons, he posted a photo. Not of me. Not even of an old family memory. No, it was a picture of William and Victoria, holding hands, gazing into each other's eyes at some holiday barbecue. Behind them, Michael and Emily were smiling, like a Norman Rockwell painting. The caption read, "Family is what matters most." My own son, stabbing me in the back in front of the entire world. And for the internet, that was all the confirmation they needed. If my own son sided with Victoria, I had to be the problem. I watched helplessly as the hate toward me intensified. Even her kid doesn't want her around, no wonder. She must have been a terrible wife and mother for them all to leave her. God, how humiliating. So bitter that even her son disowned her. I begged my friends to speak up, to tell people who I really was, to post the truth. They did try. But their voices were ignored, just like my marriage, just like my place in that so-called family. So I gave up. For days, I barely left the apartment. I locked myself away from the world, learned to coexist with the silence. I'd spend hours sitting still, staring at nothing, trying to piece together what remained of me. But then, something changed. Nancy and Carol, two women I had met on an old group trip years ago, found me. One afternoon, they showed up at my door unannounced. And when they saw me, sunken eyes, exhausted, shattered under the weight of it all, they reacted with such fierce compassion it caught me off guard. "Beth, sweetheart, we leave you alone for a minute, and look what they've done to you," Nancy said, furious. "I don't care what they're saying online. We know who you are." "That woman, she's a fraud," Carol chimed in, shaking her head. "And William, please, he's a foolish old man pretending he's some romantic lead. Pathetic." Hearing them defend me, without hesitation, without needing proof, broke something inside me. I cried again, but this time it wasn't out of pain. It was relief. These women, who I hadn't known as long as my family, saw me more clearly than the people I gave my life to. When I finally stopped crying, I poured everything out. Every betrayal, every lie, every time I silenced myself for someone who never saw me. When I finished, something inside me let go, like an ancient weight slipping off my shoulders. I wiped my face, sat up straighter, and said with a strange new lightness in my voice, "Screw William. Let him keep Vicky. I wouldn't take him back if he begged on his knees. And Michael, if he wants her as his mother, fine. He can have her. I'm done with him too." Nancy and Carol smiled, a little surprised. "I thought you'd never snap out of it," Carol admitted. "But seeing you like this, I know you're strong." "Enough about those people," Nancy laughed. "Let's talk about us. You still up for that retreat we planned?" Outside, the gray sky of the past few days began to clear. Sunlight streamed through the window, warm and golden. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. We sat down, we laughed, we dreamed. We didn't just talk about the retreat, we talked about a new trip, a new chapter. Because the world still had so much to offer me, and this time I was going to live it for me. The next morning, I packed my bags. Nancy, Carol, and I had been talking for weeks about taking a new trip together, and after everything, I knew the moment had come. We booked a month-long tour through Key West, Asheville, and New Orleans. Just thinking about it made my heart race like a teenager headed to her first adventure. We started in Key West, the salty breeze wrapping around us as we watched the coast disappear from view. That night, over dinner, Nancy raised her glass of wine. "To freedom," she toasted, Carol laughed. "And to never again wasting time on people who don't deserve it." I smiled, lifting my glass. "To our lives, because they're ours now." We spent our days soaking in the beauty of every place we visited. In Key West, we danced barefoot on the beach, the sunset painting the sky in streaks of orange and rose as we sipped cold mojitos. In Asheville, we hiked quiet mountain trails, breathing in fresh pine-scented air, stopping at hidden cafes to taste warm, homemade pies. In New Orleans, we let jazz wrap around us like silk, eating hot, sugary beignets in a bustling cafe full of laughter and stories. We laughed about our wild younger days, about old loves and missed chances, and the incredible lives we were still building. While my life was finally gaining color and meaning, Williams turned into a dull, gray blur, like an old house left to rot in silence. Not long after the divorce was finalized, Victoria moved into the Carter house like she owned the place. She showed up with designer bags, expensive perfume, and a rehearsed smile. At first, it looked like a modern-day fairy tale. Michael, blinded by appearances, treated her like a high society lady. He even started comparing her to me when talking to William. "Victoria's just on another level," he'd say. William, completely smitten, doted on her, complimented her every move, even the way she breathed. It was as if he'd fallen, in love, with a fantasy. But fantasies don't wash dishes. The illusion crumbled quickly. Without me, no one cooked, no one cleaned, no one paid the bills, bought groceries, or kept the routine running. That house, once full of life, turned into a quiet battleground. Michael, as stingy as ever, refused to hire help. And his brilliant solution? Suggesting Victoria take care of the house. After all, wasn't she the new lady of the home? Victoria tried at first. She washed a few dishes, made a couple of half-burnt meals, even changed Noah's diaper, once or twice. But it didn't take long to see the truth. She wasn't built for this. She'd been pampered all her life, used to being served, not serving. She had no clue how to care for anyone, and worse, she didn't want to learn. Within days, the house fell into chaos. The food was either raw or scorched. One week, William and Michael both lost weight and ended up in the ER with food poisoning. The doctor thought it was a virus, but no, it was Victoria's undercooked chicken. As for laundry, she'd toss everything in the machine and forget about it for days. The clothes came out smelling like mildew. Noah's room looked like a war zone, dirty diapers, toys everywhere, spilled milk dried on the floor, and taking care of the baby? She'd rather lock herself in the bedroom and binge-watch shows. One afternoon, Noah fell down the stairs, hit his head, cried for nearly half an hour. Victoria didn't hear, or pretended not to. It was the neighbor who heard the screams and came running. When Michael got home and saw the bump on Noah's forehead, he panicked. But the real tipping point came one disastrous night. Victoria, frustrated, prepared Noah's bottle with boiling water. Didn't test the temperature. He took a sip and screamed in pain. His mouth turned red, raw. They rushed to the hospital. And in that waiting room, the house of cards finally collapsed. Michael completely lost it. You don't work, you don't help, and you can't even take care of a baby. Why are you even here? He shouted, voice echoing through the ER. Victoria, fed up, snapped back with venom. My fault. Look at you, a grown man too cheap to hire help. And for the record, I'm your father's wife, not your maid. I don't owe you anything, Michael pointed right in her face. Wife? You're just a gold digger who wormed her way in here. And FYI, you and my dad never even got legally married. So technically, you're nothing. Victoria's face went pale. Her perfectly done makeup couldn't hide her fury. Oh, now you care about legality? Where was that concern when you and your dad chose me over your mother? Regret it now? Want to go crawling back to her? She reached for William's hand, waiting for him to take her side. But he sat still, eyes cast down, his face pale, his silence louder than any scream. For the first time, William looked tired of her. The shouting got so bad that a nurse came over to ask them to keep it down. No use. The scene kept unraveling until hospital security had to remove them. Bad time to lose control. Someone filmed the whole thing. A patient sitting nearby had his phone out and caught every second. Within hours, the video went viral. It was a bombshell. People started connecting the dots. That woman screaming in the hospital, the one being dragged out, was the same Victoria from that earlier viral post, the one William had defended publicly. Suddenly, the poor misunderstood girlfriend story didn't stick anymore. The internet showed no mercy. Users dug up my old post, the one that had been ignored for weeks. And now, suddenly, my story had a voice. This is the woman who destroyed a 40-year marriage and played the victim? Michael Carter humiliated his own mother for this gold digger? Disgusting. Beth, if you're reading this, we're with you. You deserved better. The fallout was fast and brutal. William, Michael, and Victoria became targets almost overnight. Michael's job, which depended on his squeaky clean image as a rising executive, crumbled. His boss, nervous about the company's reputation, found a reason to let him go. With his name tainted, no one wanted to hire him. Frustrated and broke, Michael took it out on Victoria. They fought constantly. He threatened to kick her out. She threatened to leave with everything. William? He just faded. He spent hours sitting on the porch, staring blankly into the distance. One side, the woman he waited a lifetime for. The other, the son ruined by her. Either choice was a loss. Eventually, the whole thing imploded. Emily, the only one with common sense, was left to pick up the pieces. She worked full-time, then came home to cook, clean, and care for Noah. One night, overwhelmed, she texted me, "Mom, when are you coming back? I'm at my limit. The house is a disaster without you." I read her message while dancing in a ballroom, in the arms of James Thornton. I'd met James at the Southern Charm Dance Studio, a gentleman my age, widowed for 10 years, never remarried. Found peace in the rhythm of music. On the dance floor, he was like a warm breeze on a summer night, gentle, steady, kind. That evening, he led me through a graceful tango, correcting my posture with the softest touch. I remembered dancing with William once, decades ago. Back then, I led, I fixed, I taught. But now, dancing with James, I wasn't a wife carrying the weight of a household. I was just me, Beth, alive. My phone buzzed again. It was Michael. I ignored it, until he showed up. He walked into that ballroom like a storm, saw me dancing, laughing, free, and he was furious. "Mom, what are you doing?" he shouted, pushing between James and me. "The house is falling apart, and you're out here dancing." With some stranger? I stepped back, turned to James. "I'm so sorry about this," I murmured. James smiled warmly. "It's all right, Beth. I'm here if you need me." Michael got even angrier. "Mom, you're not young anymore. Living alone isn't safe. Nothing out there is better than your home. I'm taking you back. There's dinner waiting. Dad misses you. He talks about you all the time. This was all just a misunderstanding. Married people fight. It's normal." He wouldn't stop. He was trying to pull me back into that black hole. "Enough, Michael. I'm tired of listening." Before he could speak again, Nancy and Carol walked up. They looked thrilled to see him until they spotted Michael. Their smiles faded. "Well, look who crawled in," Nancy said, sharp as a blade. Michael Carter himself. What a miracle. They were standing up for me. I could feel it. "Yep," I said, grinning. Like seeing the dead rise. Creepy. Michael's face hardened. Carol wasn't done. "You threw your mother away. Let some homewrecker walk in, like she belonged. And now what? You want her back? That's rich." Nancy chimed in. "Your mom's glowing. She has friends, peace, and James. And most of all, she's finally having fun. way more than she ever did as your unpaid nanny. Michael said nothing. For once, he left in silence. And me? I went back to dancing. Fun isn't even the word, Nancy laughed, waving her hand like she was brushing off the exaggeration. She's glowing. Meanwhile, your house is falling apart. Looks like someone's jealous because Mom's happier without him. They both burst, out laughing. And I laughed too, more out of relief than genuine amusement. It was funny, painfully funny. I'd spent decades suffering in that house, trying to please, trying to be seen, only to realize that by leaving, I had won. I had my freedom, my peace, my joy. My smile now came from the inside. It wasn't a mask. And them, William, Michael, Victoria, they were sinking in their own mistakes, arrogance, and the coldness with which they treated me. It was like the universe was finally showing who was who. Michael opened his mouth, hesitated, swallowed his pride. His voice cracked, thick with emotion. Mom, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me, just this once. Vicky disappeared. I kicked her out. You don't have to worry. You can come home. I shook my head slowly, like sealing a decision long made. I'm not coming back, Michael. My tone was calm, without anger, but firm, like someone who had cried all they could. His face crumbled like a building imploding, and, unable to believe it, he dropped to his knees right there in front of everyone, crying like a wounded child. A pathetic spectacle, but painfully familiar. More theater. I was done with the show. Done being the audience to his drama, as if suffering were some new thing for him, when I was the one who had carried tragedies in silence for so many years. Nancy sighed, impatient. Come on, Beth. Don't waste time on him. Let's dance. She took my hand gently, pulling me along. I let them pull me because, deep down, since the day William and Michael chose Victoria, betrayed me without looking back, they stopped mattering. And me? I had a life to live, a life that finally was mine. But just as we were about to leave, Michael's phone rang. It was Emily. I don't know what she said, but Michael went pale, the phone slipping from his hand, hitting the floor with a sharp sound that echoed inside me like a warning. He stood frozen, like the world had stopped with him. A terrible fear gripped my stomach. It's not Noah, is it? My grandson was innocent, the only link that still touched me. No matter. What happened between Michael and me, I never wanted anything bad for him. Michael, talk. Is it Noah? I was desperate, almost shaking him like when he was a kid pretending not to hear. But for minutes, he was silent, lost in a dark place inside his own mind. Until finally, he came back to himself, tears streaming, body trembling, sobbing loudly. Mom, please come with me to the hospital. Dad had a heart attack. It's bad. The doctor said he might not make it. Despite everything, despite the hurt, my heart wavered. I spent too many years with William. 40 years aren't just dust you blow away. Even without love, I couldn't erase our story. I was torn between past and present, between pain and compassion. Nancy, seeing my hesitation, spoke gently but firmly. Beth, if you want to go, go. You've moved on, but 40 years don't just disappear. It's not weakness. But if you don't, you might regret it. She was right. It wasn't for William. It was for me, to finally close a chapter. Without saying a word, I followed Michael to the hospital to say goodbye, not just to him, but to the woman I was with him. It had been months since I'd seen William. There he was, hooked up to machines, his fragile body covered in wires and monitors, unconscious. Through the window of the room, I stood still, feeling a chill run up my spine. Emily held my hand, whispering desperately, Mom. Her voice trembled, her eyes red. I didn't answer, didn't go in, just stared at the man in the bed. To say I felt nothing would be a lie. 40 years of marriage, no matter the pain, don't just vanish. It wasn't love anymore, but there was something, Maybe the weight of a shared life. Maybe the emptiness left by dreams that never came true. It squeezed my chest like a cold hug. Michael, losing control, was crouched on the floor, pulling at his hair, repeating, "How did this happen? He was fine this morning. How?" Emily, face dark, exploded like a pressure cooker. "Isn't it obvious? It was that woman. She did this to him." My stomach twisted. "What happened? Tell me everything." Emily scoffed, full of contempt, and began. "You don't know how awful she is. After we kicked her out, she disappeared for days. We thought it was over. But no. She came back with some random guy parading in front of William. He went crazy, told her to leave for good. But today she showed up again, all sloppy, unstable. I was home but thought it was their problem, so I stayed upstairs. I only heard the fight getting worse, then a thud. When I came down, she was gone, and William was on the floor, unconscious, bleeding from his head. He hit the corner of the table when he fell. I called the ambulance right away, but it was too late. The doctor said it was a heart attack. Michael, shaking with rage, jumped up and ran for the door. "I'm going to find that bitch. She'll pay." Emily held him back tightly. "I already called the police. Stay here. Wait for your dad to wake up." My eyes went back to William, still motionless in the bed. I let out a long, tired sigh, the kind that comes from deep in the soul. I didn't know what I felt, pity, anger, or just emptiness. A grief for someone who was no longer mine. Then a doctor rushed over. "Who's Beth? The patient is asking for her." I raised my hand hesitantly. "That's me," he urged. "Come quick. He just woke up, but he's very serious. He won't—" "Stop asking for you." One last time, I thought. One last goodbye, and I'd be free. I went in. William tried to raise his hand like he wanted to touch me, but he was too weak, just staring. "Beth, you came," he whispered, his voice fading. "I thought you'd never want to see me again." I said nothing. I went to the table beside the bed, thinking about getting him a glass of water. "No." He shook his head weakly. "Don't do anything for me now." Tears rolled down his wrinkled face. "Beth, these past days, I saw how good you were to me. I was blind, selfish. I never valued you, and now it's too late." He cried. I set the glass down. No need to serve him anymore. "William," I said, voice steady, "I know you want my forgiveness." His lips trembled, eyes full of regret. "You wasted 40 years of my life. But today, I just want to move on." He stayed silent, face sinking into guilt. I continued, "I want you to know I don't hate you. I just want us to live separate, never crossing paths again. Vicky destroyed you, and you need to recover. Stay away from her. As for me, I'm fine. I live for myself now. I eat what I want, go where I want, surround myself with people who truly care. I don't tiptoe anymore, and for the first time, I'm happy." It wasn't a lie. The smile on my face was real. It was the truest happiness I've ever felt. William saw it. His fingers trembled, but he said nothing. I turned to leave. "Beth," he called. I stopped, didn't look back. "Beth, if we could start over, would you marry me again?" I didn't hesitate. "Definitely not. I've already started over, William, and if it happens, I'll marry. Someone who loves me, not someone who keeps their heart for someone else." William let out a hoarse sound but didn't argue. We both knew I had moved on. Leaving the hospital, I felt lighter than ever. For so long, I'd been weighed down. By the past, a marriage that took more from me than it gave, a son who chose convenience over love, a life that was never mine. But now I was free. And for the first time, I embraced that freedom with every fiber of my being. I cherished every moment. I filled my phone with photos, not to show others, but for myself. This was my life now, a life where I woke up, excited, not afraid, a life where I didn't need permission to be happy. In quiet moments, sitting by the sea or under the lights of the French Quarter, I realized something. It wasn't just happiness. It was peace. Months passed, and Nancy and Carol became family. As for love, it found me when I least expected it. James and I kept in touch after that night at the salon. When I returned from the trip, he asked me out, not as friends, but as something more. For the first time in decades, I let myself feel. He was patient, kind, and unlike William, never made me prove my worth. We danced, talked for hours, and slowly, love returned. Not the kind that demands sacrifice, but the kind that celebrates freedom, respect, and being who we are. One night, on my apartment terrace, watching the lights of Savannah sparkle, James turned to me. "Are you happy, Beth?" I didn't hesitate. More than I ever thought I could be. And it was true. I lost a lot, but I gained something greater. Myself. Wow, what a journey Beth took to find herself. Thank you for watching. If you loved her story, give it a thumbs up and subscribe now for more stories that lift us up. Hit that button and join our sisterhood.